Hello, mate to Thrive Nation. It's all about autoimmune this episode, and I've got two incredible guests on the show that have built a platform, a community for people to connect with, and I think that's crucially important. I think you cannot do health on your own in an isolated form at all. So we're going to welcome the Brightly Thrive team of Noelle Creamer and Cassandra Carpenter to the show. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, for sure. And, I've been in practice 25 years as a functional medicine doc, and I've never seen autoimmune increase to this degree ever. It has become sort of just absolutely exponential. I think COVID has a lot to do with it. There are many variables and factors. And even before COVID, we saw just an exponential increase. So let's get a bit of an intro from you individually, and then a little bit about the Brightly Thrive platform and why you guys created it.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll kick things off. So I'm Cassandra. I go by Cassie. And my whole autoimmune journey started about a decade ago. I was, that's officially when I got diagnosed. But previous to that, I was dealing with a lot of symptoms that were just kind of mysterious, didn't really get tied together. And then, like I said, a decade ago, I was diagnosed with a condition called idiosymptomatic gastroparesis, which is just a really fancy way of saying that my stomach didn't work normally like, the rest of the population. So my condition consisted of a lot of vomiting, a lot of fatigue, malnutrition and things like that. And after working with the allopathic medical community, I only got so far in my healing. Really, my symptoms just kept multiplying based on the different prescription drugs I was taking. So I was basically like trying to plug all of these leaks in a bucket filled with water, right? And so when I started addressing things from a more holistic, integrative approach, that is really when I saw a shift and a pivot in my health. And that inspired me to go back to school, to want to help other people. And it really just lit a fire under me and, wanting to address this autoimmune epidemic that we're seeing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Noelle.
Yeah, so I'm Noelle, and I kind of followed similar path to Cassie here. Although my journey hasn't been as long as hers, but mine started back in 2018, and I started to experience a lot of just random mystery symptoms, some really not sexy symptoms, I guess, things like nosebleeds and fatigue and night sweats and just all sorts of things. And, a few months had gone by, and I'd gone from really living a very energetic, productive, kind of happy, so I thought healthy life to really, for lack of better terms, really just hitting my rock bottom. And, all of a sudden life was filled with doctor's appointments and hospital visits, ER, chemotherapy infusions, medications, all sorts of things. And it really was overwhelming, to say the least. And I hadn't even known what autoimmune disease was. And luckily I was diagnosed within a few short months where, as you know, Steve, on average, it takes close to 4.5 years on average, they say, for an autoimmune diagnosis to happen. So fortunately for me, I was lucky and I was able to begin treatment. But for me, what really, I got kind of angry because doctors were telling me, this is your life now, and this autoimmune disease is here to stay. And that really kind of pissed me off, for lack of better terms. And I think that anger kind of fueled a fire in me to start learning more about my body and start researching, what caused this autoimmune disease. And no doctor could answer that question for me. So I took it into my own hands and, dove into the research, went down the rabbit hole, and that led me to going back to school, similar to Cassie, and becoming a board certified health and wellness coach. And, as I was going through schooling and learning all of these things, I was applying everything I was learning to my own journey and started to see the changes and started to realize, wow, we actually have a tremendous amount of power. And then I wanted to share everything with everyone, right? I wanted to heal the world, so to speak. And then you sort of start to evangelize, all of the things that you're learning. So in our worlds, Cassie and I, we connected in the health and wellness industry where we were both running our own health coaching practices. We were independently working with other, innovative health and wellness brands, and our worlds collided. We started to share our stories, and we realized, wow, there is no community for people that are going through this. And autoimmune is extremely lonely because it's an invisible disease. Oftentimes there's a lot of shame built around autoimmune disease because, like I said, those symptoms they're not very sexy to talk about, right? So people, they hold on to that, and they need a safe place to really land and to be wrapped up in that support and to be around people that can help them kind of walk that path.
Oh, powerful stories. And you didn't really give the end of the story, how well you guys are doing, but let's get that to a little bit later, because I think the platform of the community. Let's talk about Brightly Thrive. I mean, you obviously started together as your worlds collided, as you said, Noelle, but what problem are you solving within regards to the health arena?
Definitely connection. And like you said earlier in the beginning of the show, we can't, transformation cannot happen in isolation. We need connection. Humans are wired for connection. And that social connection is medicine. It's the greatest medicine there is, right? To be able to, share your journey, walk that path with others who are going through similar things, be able to be in a safe space to talk about these things, that for me, that safe space was not found in a doctor's office. And I think something that also isn't talked a lot about in an autoimmune journey, or a health transformation for that matter, is that when you embark on a health transformation, oftentimes it can be a very lonely place because you're starting to make different changes in your life. You're sort of shedding your old identity and you're moving into a newer, healthier identity. And with that, people are in your life, kind of people that are in your orbit, they're thinking, wow, who is this new person, right? She's no longer, attending happy hour with us. What happened to pizza night, right? And you're starting to make all these healthy shifts, and it can get kind of lonely because you're like, man, where's my tribe? Where are my people, right? And I think that is what we're creating with Brightly Thrive is it's your home place, it's your tribe, it's people that know what you're going through and can share those experiences and walk that transformation right alongside you. I don't know if Cassie has anything to add to that.
You totally nailed it. I mean, it's the community piece. It's, we can do all the things on our own when it comes to researching and learning and, going off and getting education. But really, when we start to connect with other human beings, that's really where that transformation happens. You get motivated, you're inspired. Like Noelle said, you're wrapped up in support. You're with people that just get it. We both have families and we both have husbands, and, neither one of them have autoimmune disease. And yes, they are supportive, but on the days that you're having flares and things like that, they don't get it. You know what I mean? They see you suffering, but they don't know what it feels like on the inside. They can't tell where you're at mentally. And so connecting with other people that are on that same journey is just so paramount to that healing.
Brilliant. And I think so powerful just to get people connected that have similar journeys. I think we can learn a lot from one another, although they're never exactly the same, and people have got their own story and their own journey with regards to Western, medicine and natural medicine and how they've done it. So very important, but let's talk about sort of social networks and community. I know Dr. Nicholas Christakis had, incredible research on just, if you have an obese friend, you're 40% more likely to become obese, and the social networks and the impact of chronic disease. What about the research? Can you speak into the research of, well, someone joins an autoimmune group or the power of community? Is there a lot of research on people that gather together around a condition or gather together around sort of getting healed or wholeness, how powerful that is for transformation?
Yeah, there is a lot of research out there, especially since the pandemic, right? Because we all saw what isolation did to us mentally. People they either stopped caring for themselves or they started to care about themselves. And so what the research has shown is that when a group collectively joins around a common cause, which in the case of Brightly Thrive is to reimagine autoimmunity together, you start to see increases in dopamine, you start to see increases in serotonin and all of those feel-good endorphins, and that right there can just help you in terms of just your mood, help give you a more positive outlook on life, a more positive outlook on your condition. You start to see the brighter side of autoimmunity. You start to see the hope. You start to see that there are options out there. And for both Noelle and I and, our members, that diagnosis, it's not the doom and gloom that it used to be. It's actually that pivotal moment that lets you know, like, wow, okay, here I am. I've got this diagnosis. I have an answer now. Now, how do I kind of reverse engineer this, right? Or how do I light the path forward? And for many people that get that diagnosis, that join a community, they start to make these habitual lifestyle changes that really help them optimize their life, right? They're not suffering as much. They've got this community that's helping them find modalities towards healing, towards putting themselves into remission. And so the outcome of having that community is that more of these people are starting to live more vibrantly. They're starting to live more optimistically. They're using their diagnosis as a guiding light rather than, closing the chapter on this is what my life is now. It's really like, yeah, this is what my life is now. This is what I get to do. These are the things that I get to do to support my health, to support my family's health. And it really just becomes this ripple effect. And that's really kind of like us in a nutshell. We want to create that ripple effect, starting with our members and having that move outward.
Brilliant. Noelle, have you got anything else to add there?
No, I was just going to add about the ripple effect, and Cassie nailed it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's talk about what's happening to autoimmune. Firstly, maybe one of you want to just define it, because I think what happens is health coaches are so important. We've got health coaches at Made to Thrive, and we believe human capital is crucial in terms of walking out people's journeys and forming circles of communities around people, but possibly define that and then just maybe give us some of the rates of diagnosis or rates of this epidemic in America and, how it's just exponentially increasing.
Sure. So just to define autoimmunity in a nutshell, it's really when your immune system starts to attack healthy tissue, healthy cells, where, our immune system is meant to be our protector. So you'll hear a lot of the times, my immune system is attacking me, right? So statistically, there's over 100+ different autoimmune diseases. 80% and over, we know, affects women. Women primarily get autoimmune diseases. Like I mentioned earlier, it takes over 4.5 years on average for a person to get a diagnosis. And oftentimes that's because symptoms can come and go. Symptoms can overlap with other, types of conditions. Testing can be complicated. People will visit several doctors trying to really get to the bottom of an autoimmune diagnosis. And I think there's just a lack of education around it in general. Like I said, when I was diagnosed, I didn't even know what autoimmunity was. So that was a big shock in itself. I don't know if Cassie has anything to add to.
Yeah, I think just the sheer number, going back to what you said earlier, Steve, we're just seeing this exponential increase in the number of people being diagnosed. And, in America here, 350 million Americans, and, they estimate about 50 million. So almost 15% of the population has one or more autoimmune diseases. And we believe that number is much higher just because, like Noelle said, it can take an average of 4.5 years to get that diagnosis. A lot of times there's a misdiagnosis. And so, people might get diagnosed with something like GERD and, stomach ulcers, and it turns out to be Crohn's, right? Or colitis. And so, yeah, we really believe that number is a lot higher. And a lot of times people will underreport their symptoms. They, kind of poo-poo it off to being, this is normal. This is a normal part of aging. I've always had this. And so you've got these individuals with possible autoimmune conditions that are underreporting their symptoms as well. So it really is a huge problem that needs to be addressed.
Sure. So about 15 to 20%, that's significant. I mean, that's millions and millions of people, both in America, here in South Africa. I mean, that's That's a significant issue. And do you know the stats on how it's increased over the last 30, 40 years? I mean, in the 1970s, was there such a, epidemic of autoimmune, the percentage wise?
Oh, right. Yeah. Like hardly anyone heard of an autoimmune disease back then. I mean, unless you had, celiac was pretty much non-existent at that point. You might have had a case or two of lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, but now, like Noelle said, there's 100 plus autoimmune diseases. So we've seen this crazy increase in the number and the types of autoimmune diseases. There's a lot of diseases right now that are being reclassified as autoimmune as well. Type 1 diabetes, type 2 even. They're looking at type 2 because some of the other symptoms that are associated with it. My idiosymptomatic gastroparesis, that used to solely be classified as a type 2 diabetes symptom. And now it's its own kind of disease, right? Because there's no explanation. I don't have diabetes. They have no explanation for what happened. And so, from 20 years ago to now, it's just astronomical, the number of the increase that we've been seeing.
Noelle?
Yeah, and I would add to that, just take a look at the healthcare costs, right? In the US, it's over $100 billion in healthcare costs due to, things like hospital visits, right? Medications, and then that's not even factoring in, productivity losses, right? Where people are taking time off of work and not able to do the things that they're required to do. So the list just goes on and on. It truly is a epidemic for sure.
$100 billion in terms of autoimmune alone. Oh, wow. That's a massive, massive number. Okay. So let's give a story, hopefully male and female, if you can, of someone that joined Brightly Thrive, the platform, and just found a community and obviously found hope and transformation. Maybe you can share one each, because I think people are listening out there, they might have been diagnosed with an autoimmune, or they might have some symptoms and they're not sure. I'm sure it takes a similar amount of time in South Africa to get diagnosed. So let's give a real life story of someone from each of you.
Sure. You want to go first, or
go for it? I have so many.
Well, I was actually going to use my son as an example. I have a 15-year-old son. And so prior to his diagnosis, I was dealing with my own health issues and, kind of got a really good leg up on how to navigate all of my symptoms. And I kind of see it as serendipitous that I got diagnosed because shortly after my diagnosis, he was diagnosed with celiac disease. And so he had a lot of symptoms that were just kind of pushed off by his pediatrician. They said he was constipated. They said that he had just, GERD, and he was only 9 at the time. It's like 9 and he has GERD. I'm not really understanding this, So, we tried all of the over-the-counter things. But when we got that diagnosis of celiac, and I had to be the advocate, I had to be the one that kind of pushed the doctors towards doing these tests and looking into these other things and connecting the symptoms and, basically keeping a diary for him to show his pediatrician. And so, once he got diagnosed, it was just it was almost a relief because then I knew how to help. And so really, he was like ground zero for me when it came to, what we're doing with Brightly Thrive. We made changes to his diet, his mental health was affected as well. So we started to address those things. And he is doing incredibly well. He's thriving, no pun intended. But when he was, growing up, it was very difficult for him to gain weight. So he was in like the 30th percentile when it came to weight gain in his age and, for his height and weight. And once we got that diagnosis and started really working on his nutritional foundations, his sleep, his activity, his mental health, the kid is taller than me now. He's weighs more than me. And he's like your typical 15-year-old, teen. So that's just one story there of someone thriving with autoimmune. And he really loves what we do. He watches our podcast interviews, which I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, and he's just 100% behind what we do because he sees the value in having people to connect with, having a support system, and having, me as his expert, but for our members, other experts that can help them navigate through all of those twists and turns.
Brilliant. What a great story. And just It's giving me like just emotional goosebumps to know that you were able to help your son, and just ensure that from a young age he can have different options available and to treat it in a holistic way and have a brighter future than many people that don't have this platform or these options available to them. So I'm just going to preempt Noelle a little bit. Let's talk about someone who came into your platform that maybe you didn't know, that was sort of diagnosed or was confused or overwhelmed and came onto the platform and then just like plot a journey out. So they went and did this, they listened to your podcast, or they found a coach. And so maybe take us through like an actual journey of someone who joined your platform.
Yeah, so it's hard to pick just one because Cassie and I have walked thousands of members through this process. But one that sticks out, she came into the community and was really struggling with Hashimoto's disease. And she was experiencing weight gain, muscle issues, even just digestive issues. She was depressed. Really just, again, she was at her rock bottom, right? And she was also, though, very motivated. And I think she also hit a point of frustration with, I don't want to just keep taking all this medication. I want to get to the bottom of this. What can I do? Like, what power do I have? And once she made that commitment, she was like all in. She was all in on the nutrition. She was all in on the lifestyle, managing her stress, cleaning up her environment, right? Eliminating as many toxins as she could in her environment. She went through all of the testing to try to pinpoint, and play that kind of detective role that we oftentimes have to take on as patients as we go into that detective mode, trying to figure out, autoimmune is like a big puzzle, right? And you're looking for those pieces. And so she was all in. She was down that path, and we were right there alongside of her. We like to call our team, we're the guides on the sides, right? We don't do the work for you, but we are there to support you. We're there to walk you through that process. And also, I think mindset is a big deal too. And with her, she had just a brilliant mindset. She was determined to reverse her symptoms and start to heal her body. And within 6 months, that's exactly what started to happen. And like Cassie mentioned earlier, that ripple effect even happened in her own family. And she would post in the community, oh my gosh, my husband's lost 20 pounds just, being on this journey with me. And my kids are excited about learning about nutrition and the foods that we put in our bodies. And she was feeling better. And she actually, ran her first marathon. Like, she started to really live again. And I think that goes back to our big purpose with Brightly Thrive, is that we are really helping people to reimagine autoimmunity as that guiding light. It's not that doom and gloom, life is over diagnosis. It is that turning point in your life where you can take a hard look at yourself and say, what are some things that I can do? What are some things that I can change? Where can I take that power back and start to make those shifts? And it's really impactful when you start to do that, because the body wants to heal, right? The body does not want to be in a state of dis-ease, right? It wants to be at ease. And as long as we give our body what it's asking for, the body will work right along with us. And so, yeah, we just have so many incredible stories of members just experiencing just the best things. And it gives you goosebumps when you see that, because that is what, that's why we exist. That's the impact that we're trying to create.
Brilliant. So let's talk about the practicalities. Now, someone becomes a member and joined. So do they listen is your podcast available there? Or what are the actual products and programs? Do they go on a 6-week journey of meeting as a group online with 10 people? Are there functional medicine docs available to them? Or how does it actually practically work? Other than, I'm sure there's a lot of education, but let's look at what the individual offerings are that Brightly Thrive sort of offer your community.
Sure. So Brightly Thrive, we are our own dedicated platform and app. So once a person decides to join Brightly Thrive as a member, they go through a quick application process. And the application process is there to make sure that that person coming into our community aligns with our guiding principles. We want to be very intentional about the people that we bring into our community. So it's really meant to safeguard our current members, but also safeguard that new member coming in, that they know, hey, I'm joining a really high quality community surrounded by people that are all headed towards this big purpose, which is reimagining autoimmunity, really starting to heal our bodies, right? And I think oftentimes when you look at other communities out there, we like to call them faux communities, places like, no disrespect to Facebook, but places like Facebook where, people will start a free group or even a membership group. And it's like the wild, wild west, they're letting anybody into that group. And oftentimes there's no moderator, there's no experts. And so it's really the blind leading the blind. And we couldn't be more opposite than that at Brightly Thrive. So once the member comes into the community, even that process there is pretty transformational, just the type of welcome that they get into the community. I'll let Cassie talk about that as well.
Yeah, we roll out the red carpet because every member that takes the time to apply to be a part of our community, we want to, wrap them up in that warm hug, let them know that this is the place that they belong. And so once they get into our community, they get onboarded with a checklist to help them navigate through all the resources that are available to them. We have a community host, Hannah Jade. She is amazing. She's just kind of one of those just warm virtual hug people, you know what I mean? She just emanates love and just support. And so once they get into that community, they'll have access to our world-class Thrive Guides. So we have quite a few health coaches on our team that range in different specialties and are all in the health and wellness industry, very seasoned as well. So some of them have a medical background. We have a nurse practitioner, we have an RN. Some of them are more of the holistic health coaching, functional nutritional therapy. We have a breathwork coach. So we're introducing all of these modalities to our members that they may not necessarily go out and seek on their own because they don't know about them, but they're paramount to helping them heal. They also get access to any of the Thrive Guides, Thrive Lives. So these are on-demand coaching sessions that they can attend. They're group coaching sessions. So they can, if they're feeling called to listen to one of the Thrive Guides speak on a specific topic, or if they can't make that call live, they can get the replay. We also offer an AIP course. So AIP is the autoimmune paleo protocol. And so that is a very therapeutic elimination diet that a lot of people that have autoimmune will go through. And so it helps tamp down that immune response that a lot of us are going through when we're in the midst of a flare or when we first get diagnosed. And so they'll get walked through that journey. It's a cohort-based course led by one of our Thrive Guides. They also have access to lots of different resources in terms of workbooks, monthly challenges. We bring in guest speakers on a monthly basis. And then, the biggest piece is that community. So our hub is the autoimmunity community, and that is where all the connection happens. That is where the stories get shared. That is where, if you're having a bad day, you post about that. If you're having a great day, you post about that. We don't try to sugarcoat this journey. We really want them to bring their authentic selves to the table. Share when you're having a really crap day, because we all have them. And, sometimes you just need that little bit of, hey girl, hey guy, you got this, right? And that is just enough to get you through the rest of your day. And then when we're celebrating all of those wins, no matter how small, we're encouraging members to share what they're doing, what is changing their lives, what hacks are they using, what supplements are they taking, and just opening each other's eyes to the potential.
All right. Wow. So there's a whole bunch. So they can do weekly coaching sessions, group coaching sessions. Is it one fee, or is it it's just sort of referral based? There's extra costs, or how does it work from a financial model perspective? Because it sounds amazing that if you can sort of share in a group forum, and are there circles within circles? So do you get like a 10 group, your own little, group that you with a facilitator, or how does it work to connect with people?
Yes, that's exactly right. With our cohort-based wellness programs, such as our AIP program, it's a 6-week program. They get to meet their cohorts. They have a dedicated space dedicated to that program. And there is a facilitator, which is one of our Thrive Guide experts, and they are walking them through that 6-week transformational process. And yes, I know it seems like it's too good to be true, right? With Brightly Thrive, but it is just one monthly membership fee.
Okay, wow. Well done, guys. That's pretty incredible. Let's talk about, because you've obviously on the latest research with regards to diagnosis and treatment, and you've probably heard everything from, maybe Fisetin suppositories to red light in the nose to, using methylene blue, so you've probably heard it all, and you've probably learned a hell of a lot. I say to my patients over 25 years, no one's taught me more about sort of medicine than my patients, so, and the community that we're building at Made to Thrive. But let's talk about firstly diagnosis. Takes 4.5 years. What are the latest sort of diagnostic tests that you guys can sort of shed light on in terms of helping someone who's maybe listening now, who's at the gym or running or in the car saying, listen, I've had these symptoms. I've been to my traditional, medical doctor, and there's sort of no resolution on what I've got, or they've started the Western route. They're not happy taking these chronic medications. So let's go diagnosis first.
Yeah. So I think, basically when you go to the doctor, they'll run a comprehensive panel, right? A comprehensive blood analysis panel. But some of the other markers that should be included are going to be, like your ANA, your C-reactive proteins, things like that, because that gives you a little bit more insight into what's going on. And what a lot of people don't know is that, when we get some of those blood lipid panels done, that increase in cholesterol, the increase in the bad cholesterol, it's a symptom of some inflammation going on in the body, right? So that can be another indicator as well. Some other helpful testing that can be done are going to be like your nutritional testing. So testing for things like vitamin D, your mineral levels, just all of those things that go into, the digestive process that are, what am I trying to say? They're like results of the digestive process, right? Like what minerals are you actually taking away from your food? Are you malnourished? Things like that. And then some other tests that come along the way. They're not traditionally recommended, but if you're going to advocate for some additional testing, hormone testing, adrenal testing, in the case of celiac, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, you're going to want to see a GI specialist and get some type of an endoscopy, possibly a colonoscopy, depending on where the disease is manifesting in the body. So those procedures are incredibly invasive. Not everyone wants to undergo those types of things, but sometimes they're a necessity in order to get the answer that you need. And I don't know if Noelle has some additional testing that she might recommend for people out there listening.
Yeah, for me personally, I think, environmental toxin testing was big for me. So testing for things like heavy metals, which can oftentimes trigger an autoimmune response, and also mold testing, right? I think people don't think about their environment. They're looking outward instead of just right where they're at. And I think that mold testing too is a big one.
Okay, brilliant. And then once a person's got a diagnosis and then they come into your platform, are there sort of specific sort of forums where, say, you got someone with rheumatoid arthritis that can join that group, or with lupus, or even Hashimoto's thyroiditis has become such a incredibly common diagnosis now. I think in 1979, 1% of all thyroid conditions was Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I think it's up to 90% now. So things have changed, dramatically there. But once I've got a specific diagnosis, is it sort of come into the community because you got autoimmune, or do you have specialists that might speak into rheumatoid arthritis, or specialists that might speak into lupus?
Yeah. So when they come in, it is generally the autoimmunity community, but we do have experts that have, a wealth of experience and knowledge when it comes to disease specific conditions. We haven't created spaces that are disease specific because we don't want people to be hyper focused on that. We want them to be hyper focused on the healing journey, the things that they need to implement into their life. Most of these things are going to be foundational across the board, and then they'll start getting more specialized specialized attention from our Thrive Guides when it comes to implementing specific techniques for those diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or Hashimoto's or, ulcerative colitis or lupus. So we bring them in. We want to teach them the foundations for living well, living healthy, living a holistic lifestyle, because they're going to see those major shifts just from doing those things alone. And then as they join these Thrive Live calls, as they get the education that we're providing, and then they start to know and understand, what their specific disease is about and how it's affecting their body, then they start to understand what questions to ask. And then they can have the access to those experts to get those answers and those recommendations as well.
Brilliant. Noelle, have you got anything else to add, or are you good?
I was just going to say that, really too, members are learning from other members. So part of being in a community like Brightly Thrive is, the members are having conversations with each other about their specific condition. So someone with, Hashimoto's is talking with another member that has Hashimoto's, and they're saying, well, here's what I did. This may work for you. And so it's really sparking those conversations amongst each other too. I think that there's immense learning happening just from that. We always like to say that people are learning with our Thrive Guides versus learning from our Thrive Guides, because our team, they're learning from the members just as much as the members are learning from them. And I think that is what true community is.
Brilliant. And, we've used health coaches, and it's sort of growing slowly here in Africa. And I know it's a lot bigger in the US. And tell us, do they get a one-on-one coaching session? I mean, I believe coaching is fundamentally important, to walk alongside someone, to help them, to allow them to have their own revelation, and then, basically execute on that revelation or that thought process, and just to be a guide and support. How does it work from a coaching perspective?
Great question. And I definitely underscore everything you just said, because Cassie and I are big believers in coaching. We have coaches ourselves, believe it or not. Yes, coaches even have coaches, because we know that the tremendous value that coaches bring when going through a transformation. So our members have the ability to book one-on-one sessions with our Thrive Guides if they choose to do so. There may be someone who has a specific condition. And I think one of the great things about our Thrive Guide team is that these aren't just experts who, have gotten credentials or have gone through schooling. These are experts that have done those things, but they also have a personal tie to autoimmune disease, whether they've experienced autoimmune disease themselves or have been affected in some way or another. So I think that is really important as well. So members may resonate with, one Thrive Guide because of a certain condition, or they may just, connect with them in some way, energetically, whatever it is. And they have that ability to work with them, which we think is really fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Cassie, you got anything to add there?
No, I think she explained the process pretty well. One of the things that was really important in finding our Thrive Guides was, like Noelle said, making sure they had that intimate connection with autoimmunity, because we wanted our members to, feel supported and know that the person that they are potentially connecting with on a one-on-one basis is going to understand their journey.
Yeah, we like to say that our experts, they learned everything that they know through schooling, but they've earned everything they know through their lived experience.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. Well said there. Brilliant. You guys have got a lot of experience now. Let's talk about, what's been some game changers at Matrix Drive. We've got 7 pillars, from community to purpose, environment, looking at radiation, blue light, and the light that you absorb, which is, very, very important. Most of us are mal-illuminated as well as malnourished, and our light diet is as important as our food diet. 2 things like sleep, and then movement, self-quantification, knowing where you're at from an assessment perspective. But maybe you guys can give each your top 2 areas or pillars that you've seen significantly move the needle with people with autoimmune.
Yeah, let me see here. That's a good one, because there's so many to top 2. Okay. Well, nutrition. I mean, nutrition is just, it's baseline, the quality of the foods that you're putting into your body. I mean, we all have heard that saying, you are what you eat, but it's not just, okay, what most people think is healthy is not. And I have been guilty of this. You know, when I first started out my health journey, I thought healthy came in a box and had no fat and low calories, right? And it really took a whole mindset shift and a lot of learning to understand that real food, real whole food, as close to nature as possible, is really going to be, you know, the best thing you can do for your body and the best thing that you can give your body, because your body recognizes that. It's not recognizing all of the other things that you're putting into it. So, you know, for me, foundationally, nutrition for sure. And then I think second, with my specific condition, I was so malnourished that even eating those whole foods wasn't enough. I had a deficit that I needed to bridge that gap. And so using high quality supplements really, really helped bridge that gap for me. And when I started incorporating those supplements into my regimen, along with my whole foods diet, I really started to feel the difference. I could feel, you know, my cells making energy. I could feel the brain fog lifting. And that's the thing that people have to remember with supplements. They're supplementary to an optimal lifestyle and an optimal diet, right? We don't want to use these things forever. We want to use them to bridge certain gaps. And unfortunately, you know, with our current food supply, there are a lot of gaps. So, people are finding themselves called to use supplements more and more. But so, yeah, to recap, for me, the quality of the food that you're putting into your body, where it comes from, and supplements, high quality ones.
Brilliant. Noelle?
Well, for me personally, it was the biggest game changer, I think, for me was really dealing with the emotional piece of my journey. So back in 2018, when I first got diagnosed, I was really hyper-focused on the nutrition, the lifestyle changes, my sleep, my stress, those sorts of things. And it wasn't until a few years later that I really started to tap into the emotional work. And, you know, Cassie and I, we believe that those unresolved emotions, that unresolved trauma plays a significant role in all disease, right? And the body expresses what the mind suppresses. And that was me. And, you know, I thought, oh, I don't have trauma. What are you talking about? You know, I thought this trauma was just a buzzword that was happening back then. And once I started to kind of get into the work, I realized that there was definitely a major connection. And through that work, I've been able to process and able to kind of, work on those unresolved emotions and traumas. And that's been a huge game changer for me. And luckily with Brightly Thrive, we cover it all. So, you know, we have those experts in our community that can help people through that. Part of a health transformation is to, you know, talk about those emotions, and they can do it in a safe, non-judgmental place. And I think that is really powerful, because there's no place that we have come across that does that, you know, in a community setting space with autoimmunity.
Brilliant. Well said. And I think crucially important part of the journey. I think people's emotional health has been left to the wayside. And I think it's probably the area that has been neglected the most. And, I love, many of my guests have spoken about trauma, but I love this meme, and you've got a great way with words, Noelle, so it's wonderful. But that trauma is not what happens to you, but what happens inside of you. And that what happens inside of you can manifest in many different ways. So crucially important. We're coming to the end of the show, not the very last question, but one of the last questions is, what sort of biohacks, from infrared sauna to methylene blue to, rectal ozone insufflation to brain tap. We use a product called Brain Tap, Patrick Porter's work, taking it brain states from high beta into, the alpha states, things like the Apollo, which is sound frequency waves, radiation devices like Leela. We've done it. We've gone there, cold thermogenesis, cold plunges, intranasal, NAD. I mean, I can tell you about so many different things, but maybe you can the community has spoken in terms of like two sort of biohacks or sort of alternative things that people have tried that have worked from each of you.
I love that. And, I think when you start to talk about these things, you see people's eyes widen, and they kind of get excited and they want to know, and you can see that curiosity within them happen. We see that in our community all the time. One thing we do always point out to our members is that, as Cassie mentioned before, just laying those foundations right before you start to layer in all of these sort of biohacking modalities is making sure the nutrition's right, making sure that those lifestyle, factors are right. If a person's drinking a half a bottle of wine and then they're going to try to go cold plunge that night, it's probably not going to work out too well, right? And there's many different types of biohacks too, and I love all of those things, and I'm into those things myself. I'm actually putting a cold plunge into my home currently, but I also think that we can get back to the basics, and that there's some sort of nature's free biohacks, things like intermittent fasting or sunlight exposure, right? Getting out and getting that light, as you mentioned earlier, Steve, breath work, which we offer in the Brightly Thrive community, fresh air, just getting out and surrounding yourself in nature. So all of those kinds of, getting back to the basic type of nature biohacks, so to speak. And I know Cassie, she's into cold plunging as well. So
I've got my whole family on board.
Good. But now I'm going to push you for your top one or top two, not only personally, but what the community has said with regards to these. Because there are people that come in, they've done elimination diet, they've got the nutrition tight, they've had ozone, they've had hydrogen peroxide with me. We offer IV clinic. We've done a hell of a lot. But what are probably the top one or two, that you found that the community has said, listen, these are probably one of the two areas that you should be trying?
For us, I think in the community, a lot of people are really big into the infrared sauna, just for the detoxification that it offers and reducing the inflammation, which we know is huge with autoimmunity, and just really improving their overall well-being. So we have a lot of chatter going on about the infrared saunas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the other one, I mean, it's not like fancy or technical, but it's the intermittent fasting piece, and knowing how to do it right, and knowing how to, knowing how to eat while you're doing the intermittent fasting, because it's just as important what you're putting into your body. But for a lot of people, truly experiencing what it feels like to be hungry is completely different than what they thought what feeling hungry was like, right? They eat more out of habit than true hunger. And teaching them that piece, and then making that connection with autophagy, right? Letting them know that your body is now like doing like a major overhaul on those sentient cells and things that are just kind of mucking up your lymph system. And when they get that insight into what's actually happening inside of their body, this little light bulb goes off, and they really go at it hard. So we've had people go through extended fasts, days long up to a week long, which sounds crazy for a lot of people that may not be familiar with that process. But the results that they see in terms of, scar tissue breaking up, getting more mobility, we had a woman that had a frozen shoulder for like the last 20 something years. And after a 1 week fast, a 1 week water fast, all of a sudden she was able to like move her arm, lift it above her head, put her shirts on, and sounds so simple, sounds, so basic, but to her it was life changing because, of the way she had to learn how to dress herself because of that pain and that frozen shoulder. So yeah, just really powerful, but so simple as well.
Fantastic. Maybe you want to just sort of lead us where Brightly Thrive is going and what you see the future of, managing autoimmune and preventing autoimmune. I do a lot of keynotes, schools, universities, corporates. We've got a huge corporate, part of the business. And I've always said we're losing the war against chronic disease. We need to prevent chronic disease and not try and treat it. There aren't enough doctors and physicians and specialists to treat chronic disease. So let's talk about the future of Brightly Thrive, where you see it going, and the possibility of preventing autoimmune.
Well, Noelle and I get super excited when people ask us that question because we've got big, lofty goals when it comes to Brightly Thrive. Right now, it's an online platform. We're connecting people virtually, but eventually we want to have in-person retreats. We want to connect people in person because there's a lot of magic that happens when you do that, right? Something that just can't be facilitated in a virtual standpoint. There's just a lot more flexibility, a lot more activities that you can put into it. We're also looking to create our own high quality supplement line at some point in time, because that's something that we're both very passionate about. And yeah, I don't know what, I mean, those are like the two big ones on my mind. I know you've got lots of ideas. She's the visionary, so I'll let her kind of throw a couple more things at you.
We envision Brightly Thrive being a global phenomenon. I'll leave it at that.
Brilliant. Well, I want to declare favor and blessing over Brightly Thrive, over you, Noelle, over you, Cassie. What a great calling you have, and just want to imbue courage into you that you would carry on in this journey. Privileged to have got to know you. I'd love to go through the program, let my head coach go through it as well. And, then once we've gone through it and it sounds great, then possibly recommend it to the Made to Thrive community and that, because like you said, being online and then doing in person, you can connect people online, and then once they connect with one another, they can then meet in person, wherever they are in the world. So yeah, let's just a message of hope from both of you with regards to the management and prevention of autoimmune.
Thank you. That really means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Cassie. And what a wonderful experience. Thank you for having us on this show. And yeah, we definitely would like to extend an offer to have your head coach come in and join the Brightly Thrive community.
Brilliant,
yeah,
Cassie.
thank you for having us. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And thank you for letting us put Brightly Thrive out there in front of your audience. We our goal is to help people reimagine life with autoimmunity and using it as that guiding light, not that doom and gloom sentence that typically happens when you're behind that closed door in the doctor's office, right? Now they've got somewhere to go. They know they can open that door, and there's someone that's going to be there to help them and to guide them and to wrap them up in that support that they're looking for.
Brilliant, ladies. Well, when I meet people like you, I'm filled with a lot of hope, and the collective consciousness is rising for sure. There's been a lot of despair, a lot of pain over the last few years, especially. I've never seen people with so much fear, so much anxiety, loss of control, and overwhelm. But it's people like you and the communities that you're building that is just adding such value to humanity and to the world. So I know you're going to go places. I see the passion, but not only the passion, the execution. And once you can start executing and executing consistently, I think many, many people's lives are going to be changed. So thank you so much.
Thank
Amen.
you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
You.